Hey guys, it's Dan, your host of your Dan's Reviews, and today I'm back for another video for today. This one's going to be looking back on the year that was 2022, and we are going to be doing our full year in review. Alright guys, this one's going to be doing another video for today, this one's going to be doing another video for today, this one's going to be doing our annual video that we always like to do every single year. This one's going to be looking back on the year that was 2022 and doing our full year in review. So, this has been a absolutely insane year. I mean, every year is insane, right? I mean, you know, life never stops, right? But this video is going to be talking about 2022 and of course the entertainment that we've been provided with this year on the channel. So this video, we're going to talk about every TV show. Every single show that you've seen covered on this channel this year will be acknowledged in one way, shape, or form in this video, and we are going to discuss what we liked from 2022, what we didn't like, and all the stuff in between. So, if you are a fan of, let's say, for example, Better Call Saul, but you don't watch the other TV shows, that's fine. You can watch the Better Call Saul segment of this video. Or if you are a Walking Dead subscriber and you watch the Walking Dead content, then you can watch the Walking Dead segments and, you know, all the other stuff, you know, you can maybe skip and be surprised by those TV shows as well. And the reason I say that is because this video will not hold back on any spoilers of the TV shows we discuss. So, of course, make sure to keep that in mind. But before we get into this video, I want to, of course, say to everybody, I hope you've all had an amazing 2022 in your lives as well, too. Not just, you know, the entertainment side of things, but in your lives. I hope you all have had an amazing 2022. I, myself, actually very much enjoyed my year. I can say that 2020 and 2021 were big duds for me, as I'm sure most of the world can kind of relate to. But 2022, I feel like, was actually a very good year. For myself personally in my real life, and I can say I enjoyed 2022. So now let's talk about the content, because the content, I would say, this year is a very mixed bag. So let's get started with the first show that we reviewed in 2022, which was The Walking Dead 11B. So, Walking Dead 11B, this is a half season that I think is very, very mixed. I very much enjoy a lot of elements of 11B of The Walking Dead, such as No Other Way and Warlords, and some of these episodes like The Rotten Core and some of these, but there are also episodes like Rogue Element or The Lucky Ones or things like this that are not exactly that great. So 11B for me is a very mixed half. I do enjoy a lot of elements of it. I think it's a very well done half season. I think there are things about it that are good. And like I said, I do like the final battle with the Reapers. I do enjoy the introduction, the full introduction, that is, for the Commonwealth. But I think there are some definite issues of the season. The Eugene love life storyline is not exactly my favorite. And I will say that there are a few kind of things sprinkled in between that are not the greatest. Like Lance teaming up with Leah, that made no sense to me. And, you know, a few things like that. But I also enjoyed Lance as a villain, and I enjoyed the Commonwealth as an overall storyline in that season. So it was pretty good. You know, it was a pretty good half season, I would say. Next up is World Gone Mad Season 3. Now, this is my own series. This is the series that I released this year for you guys. This is my own exclusive series that you can watch on the channel called World Gone Mad. It's my own apocalyptic story for anybody that's curious. But this one is Season 3. So, in this season, we got to see the major Viper War. This is the end of the Viper storyline that we've been focusing on basically since the beginning of the series. We've been setting up the Vipers throughout the whole show. And this season, we finally see the battle. We see the battle of the ranch with Haley versus Miles and the rest of the Vipers. We get to see the introduction of Paul, which is Dave's father, who unfortunately is lost to this war not too much later in the season. We also get to see a backstory with Sydney, and we get to see her rivalry between her and Lindsay, which is therefore continued in the season finale of this season, where the two of them actually fight to the death pretty much, until we get introduced to Julia in that season, which is Lindsay's daughter, who, yes, Lindsay has a daughter character, and she ends up kind of seeing the lights of what Tom and the rest of them are doing and trying to fight for something better and trying to fight for a better life. And she ends up realizing how, you know, evil her mother really is, and she ends up saving Sydney's life in order to protect Tom and the rest of that group from her own mother, and ends up killing her mother in order to get the group to fully win the war, ultimately in the end. So it's a very major fight season. There's a lot of action throughout of it. If you're looking for a major action season, this is probably the biggest one for World Gone Mad we've done so far, and it's definitely a major war season when it comes to the Vipers and the final stand of that group. So that's World Gone Mad Season 3 for this year. We will not be discussing Season 4 because I am still airing that season currently, but that is World Gone Mad Season 3 for 2022. Now, the next one is Survival of the Fittest Season 5. This one is a really, really big season. This is a longer season for Survival of the Fittest. This is 13 episodes, and this season mostly focuses on the Brotherhood villain group, but we also do focus on the introduction of the new Wellington community, which I would say is easily the highlight for me of the 5th season of Survival of the Fittest, is the introduction of the Wellington community and getting to see these new characters like Miranda and Warwick and stuff like that. But we also had the Brotherhood in this season, which I thought were a very interesting kind of threat for Survival of the Fittest. They were not exactly like an extraordinary group. They weren't like the greatest group on the show or anything like that, but they were definitely a major group of villains for a section of this season, and they did kill off Jeremy, which I thought was a pretty major moment, to be honest. Definitely a major moment for the Survival of the Fittest show, and it's probably one of my favorite seasons of the show. Probably not my favorite, but Season 5 is a very well done season, and I do quite enjoy it. In particular, in the final few episodes there, when we set up the Dragons group and we set up the Wellington community, I thought there was some really good stuff there. But I think this season is a very solid watch. I think it's a very good season. Now, after that, we get Fear the Walking Dead 7B. Now, this is probably one of the only times this year I'm going to call something awful. I would consider Fear the Walking Dead Season 7B to be something awful. This season does nothing for me. This is just an absolute shitpost at the end of the day. This is a season that I think really messed up when it comes to the war between Victor Strand and Alicia, and I think it really failed when it comes to that. I think it really did not do the job that it was supposed to do, which is show you a major final fight between the two of them and show you a major battle between the two. We did not get that. We wasted our time with a whole bunch of bottle episodes, with Daniel being confused thinking that his daughter's alive, to Charlie, bonding with this guy that dies within the same episode that catches butterflies for her, and there are a lot of bad episodes throughout this season, but those are a couple examples. And honestly, I think this season ruined a lot of things. It really messed up the Victor Strand character for me. It really messed up the Alicia character for me. It also was the season where we sent off Alicia Denham Carey from Fear the Walking Dead, which was a very, very, very bad exit for that character. And such as Damage Control, they brought in her mother back into the series, which was Madison, which I felt was like a very desperate move on the writer's end of things. And I do not believe, and I am not with the fan base when I say that they brought Madison back out of the goodness of their own hearts. I do not believe that at all. I feel like they brought her back for simply views and desperation of keeping the show going for an 8th season, and that is exactly what they did. And it's, very, very upsetting. But Fear the Walking Dead this year, I think, was probably one of the major problems of 2022, and it was a very bad season, in my opinion. Now, after that, we have Dead in the Water, which is a Fear the Walking Dead spinoff series, a webisode series, which I thought was very well handled. It's basically the backstory of the End is the Beginning cult member Riley, where we get to see a little bit of his backstory on what the beginning of the fall of humanity was like for him, and I think they did it relatively well. I'm not mind blown by this series. I don't think it's a masterpiece per se. I don't think it's a fantastic, amazing, flawless thing. But I think it's a very solid series, and it's a cool little kind of extra piece if anybody is a fan of the Riley character. I think it's definitely something important to the story, and I think it's well done, in terms of being kind of a spin-off for Fear the Walking Dead and giving you extra knowledge on some of these characters, for sure. After that, we have Better Call Saul, the final season, # season 6. Now, season 6 was a very enjoyable season. I think the first half of Better Call Saul season 6 was basically flawless television. I loved every bit of it, from the end of the Howard storyline to the end of Nacho, to linking things up to the Breaking Bad timeline, slowly but surely setting that up in the first half of the season. And Lalo as a villain, I thought, was well built up and a very well executed character. Now, the second half of season 6 of Better Call Saul, I don't think was as strong. I think it was very good to start with the death of Lalo and the syncing up completely of the timeline between Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. So I think they did a very good job with that. But as you get into the Gene Takovic timeline, I feel like that's when things get a little bit rusty. I feel like they could have definitely added a few more things to it. For example, the 10th episode, I think, suffers a lot from the black and white filter, and the final few episodes in general, I think, suffer from the black and white filter. I do understand that you have to tell a story, and Gene and his timeline is definitely very depressing, so therefore you do have to do a black and white timeline like that. But I think visually for an end of a series, it definitely fell a little flat for me. But I think the overall story of Gene and what he was going through and him turning himself in and admitting to what he did, I thought was a very, very strong conclusion to Better Call Saul, and I think the show relatively ended in a very, very good way. I just think there were a few pitch problems and a few execution problems within the back half of the season, but it was a very enjoyable final season, and I think Better Call Saul relatively ended very well. I don't think it ended as well as the original series Breaking Bad, but I think it had a strong enough conclusion and a strong enough ending for the series. Therefore, I think it was mostly a success rather than a fail. I think it's a relatively good season and a good end for Better Call Saul. Now, switching over to the Amazon Prime viewers, we have The Boys Season 3. So, The Boys Season 3 was an amazing season, I would say, to start, and I think we had a really good run there for the first 4 episodes, and I think the first 4 episodes of Season 3 are absolutely flawless. I thought they were amazing, but after that, we do get into a few duds. I am not the biggest fan of Episode 5. I absolutely adore Episode 6, the Hero-gasm episode. No one can ever forget how insane that one was. And then Episode 7, I'd say we dropped back again in quality. I think the quality really went down in Episode 7. I had a lot of issues with the episode, the way it was done. And then the season finale, I would say, relatively ended in a pretty good way, right? So Season 3 of The Boys, I would say, is easily their worst season. But that's not a flaw. That is not an insult to the show. I think Season 3 of The Boys does suffer with a few minor flaws, but I also think they have amazing qualities to them, too. Homelander is amazing. Soldier Boy is a fantastic addition, and I love everything they did in this season from really the first 4 episodes and the 6th episode. Those episodes are absolutely flawless, and I would say Season 3 of The Boys is a relatively good season. I would say there's more bad than good. There are a few slip-ups, but I think The Boys Season 3 was relatively well received, and it was a good season. Now, we also have the spin-off that came out this year, which was The Boys Diabolical, which is the animated series that is a spin-off to the Boys franchise, which is a little bit on the different side. Now, Diabolical is falling under probably the worst thing I've seen this year. I'm going to say it. I think it is probably the worst thing I've watched this year in terms of entertainment and in terms of things we've reviewed on this channel. This is an awful season. It's an awful season. I think the season finale is a very good episode to focus on Homelander and what he's been through, but I think the rest of this season really suffers when it comes to quality, and there are episodes that I think are really, really bad. And I'm not even exaggerating, guys, when I say there's literally an episode about a girl that wanders around with a piece of shit, I'm not even joking, an actual piece of shit in her hand, and wanders around and calls it her best friend. That is easily the worst entertainment episode I've seen this year. That was absolutely, it was shitty. Pardon the pun, but it was shitty. It was absolutely awful. So definitely not a good season. Definitely badly executed, and The Boys' first animated series, spin-off series, I think was a major, tremendous fail, but we will see, obviously, Gen V, if they can do something better with that, but that was The Boys franchise this year. Now, next up, we had Stranger Things Season 4. Now, this is the major show on television every time it comes out. This is the most famous show to ever hit the face of this earth, I feel like, at times. Stranger Things Season 4, what did we think about it? Well, I thought it was a relatively good season for Stranger Things standards. I think for Stranger Things standards, they definitely did a good job with the Vecna character, and they did have a lot of really cool kind of 80s nostalgia, as they always do with that show, and I genuinely enjoyed Hopper and the Russia arc, him being trapped in Russia and trying to escape. I thought they did a relatively good job with that storyline at least a lot of times. But I also think that Stranger Things Season 4 does suffer with a few problems. I am not exactly the biggest fan of the 5th and 6th episode of that season, and I think there are a few moments with the Jockos, who are the high school bullies or whatever that season, that were a little bit on the irritating side for that season, but relatively is probably the best season, Season 4 of Stranger Things. It's probably their best work. It's definitely their best season in terms of villains and story and soundtrack and stuff like that. So it's a relatively good season, but but I think it is, flawed at a lot of times. And I do find the season, well, the show in general, to be very overrated, which I know will be a hot take for people. But I do think Stranger Things is a bit of an overrated show. I don't think it's the greatest show in the world. I don't even think it cracks the top 10, to be honest. But to each their own, right? Now, after that, we got Clementine Lives, the Walking Dead comic book. Now, this is an absolute disgrace. This is a disgrace, and I'm not going to spend much time on it because honestly, this is a really badly executed thing. Clementine Lives is basically a sequel to the end of the Walking Dead Telltale video game series where we follow Clementine, who abandons AJ and abandons her, son figure, and basically leaves with one leg and goes out there. And I'm not really going to cover it too much. If you want to read it, you can read it for yourselves. It's a really badly told story. Most of the characters that are introduced in this story do not matter whatsoever, and it's a really badly told story for Clementine, and one that I am not interested in seeing the continuation of, to be fully honest. I just don't really have much of an interest. After that, we have Dark Winds, the AMC show. Now, this is a series that's we reviewed for a time on the channel. We did drop reviews for it because I felt like the show was just kind of losing its quality a little bit, and I don't really feel like it was anything special. We did try it because I do recognize that the main writer for it was George R.R. Martin, who is the writer of the Game of Thrones books and the Game of Thrones franchise and stuff like that. But it just really didn't do anything for me. It was one of them shows where it had good moments, but it always suffered with its main flaws. And I think the main villain, Father So, was low-key a Gus Fring ripoff from Breaking Bad. He just kind of felt like a complete copy of that character, which is kind of what kept me not wanting to watch the show a little bit, is because his character just kind of felt like a ripoff of Gus Fring when I can just watch Gus Fring on Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad and enjoy it just as much. So I don't know, it didn't really do anything for me. Now, after that, we had the Road Rats, the showrunner community series, the Road Rats Season 2. This one is the season where we wrap up the Dawn storyline with his group, and then in the back half of the season, we get to see the introduction of the dragons and getting to merge things a little bit with the main series, Survival of the Fittest, that is. So, this was a really interesting season. I would say it is a pretty darn good season for the most part. I think the second half of the season especially is one of the best half seasons to come out of this year for me, to be honest. I thought it was very well done with the Dragons group and the introduction of that storyline and the introduction of Cypher and the reveal at the end of the season and all the amazing things that were there. I do think the first half of the season did suffer with the Dawn storyline kind of dragging a little bit too long, at least in my opinion of things. And I think the Hannah character was definitely a major kind of pain in the ass for the story, and I feel like at times could have been removed in a better way. But I think overall it was a good season. It was a good setup season for the final season of the Road Rats, and I relatively enjoyed it. Now, after that, we had the Resident Evil, the Netflix series. Now, this is a series that's based off of a video game, and every time we get a TV show, a TV series that is based off of a video game, it never goes well. And in this case, we reviewed the pilot and we bailed. I watched a couple episodes and I was done. I couldn't watch it. The show was utterly a disgrace. And in my opinion, a very, very bad attempt at the game's, the Resident Evil. I just thought it was absolutely awful. Now, after that, we had Comic-Con 2022, which I thought was incredible this year for Walking Dead fans. We had the return of Andy and Denai to announce their spinoff series, which was obviously the highlight, and we had an amazing Comic-Con trailer for The Walking Dead Season 11, which I thought was really, really fantastic. And after that, we got to see a lot of things. We got to see the, Fear the Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead wasn't advertised. Tales of the Walking Dead, that's what it was. Tales of the Walking Dead had a Season 1 trailer, which I thought was, okay at best, and that was Comic-Con. But Comic-Con this year was really good. It wasn't virtual, it was, it was in person, and we had Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrero that definitely owned Comic-Con that year with their big introduction and the announce of their spinoff and stuff like that. I thought that was very, very well handled. Now, after that, we have Tales of the Walking Dead Season 1, which I can definitely say was a very bad series for me. I did not enjoy Tales of the Walking Dead whatsoever. As you guys know, the only episode of Tales of the Walking Dead that I fully enjoyed was Evie and Joe. I thought that episode was relatively well done, but aside from that, there were a lot of bad elements. There were a lot of bad aspects of it, and honestly, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there wasn't. There were a lot of problems. The Alpha episode, I think, really messes with the canon of the main Walking Dead, and I think really messes with the canon of We Are the End of the World, and that's why that episode doesn't really age that well for me. Although I do think the episode has its moments, I think it is heavily flawed. And the rest of the episodes are really bad. Gina and Blair is probably the worst live action episode I've seen this year, and episode 4 was absolutely pointless. Episode 5 was very badly executed, and episode 6, once again, an episode that didn't go nowhere for the furthering of the plot of the Walking Dead franchise. So I'm definitely going to say Tales of the Walking Dead was more of a fail than it was a success, and I think it was definitely one that they could have done a lot better on. Now, after that, we had The House of the Dragon, which I thought was a very, very entertaining first season. It's the spin-off series for the Game of Thrones series, and of course, that I'd say did its job very, very well. House of the Dragon, I thought was an amazing series. We got to see years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen and the storylines with the Lannisters versus the Targaryens and how everything kind of went. And we had some great characters like Rhaenyra and Alicent and Daemon and a lot of great ones kind of throughout, and this was a relatively good first season. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's a perfect first season, but it's a very solid first season for a spin-off series for Game of Thrones. I think they did a fantastic job with a lot of this season, and I think they did a relatively good job introducing these characters, introducing the world at this time with all the characters included. The only flaws I would say with this season is the time skip gimmick was a little bit on the overkill side, but aside from that, very, very well done season. And last but not least, the final thing to come out for entertainment in 2022 is the one and only The Walking Dead 11C. So The Walking Dead 11C I thought was absolutely sensational. I loved it. I loved basically every moment of it besides the death of Lance Hornsby. I think this was a phenomenal final half of the show. They brought back Rick Grimes. They had amazing fights with the Commonwealth. They had amazing episodes like Outpost 22, Faith, Family, Rest in Peace, Lockdown, A New Deal. Hell, they're all amazing, to be honest. But 11C I thought was the amazing and perfect conclusion that The Walking Dead needed. It really set the show in a amazing way and sent off the show in a way that I didn't think was possible. But The Walking Dead pulled off a phenomenal ending, and for that I would say it's my favorite TV show to come out of this year, and that's what we ended this year on, is The Walking Dead 11C in terms of entertainment. So, looking back on 2022, I think we did have a lot of great shows. We had 11B Walking Dead, which was relatively good. We had The Boys Season 3, which was awesome. Better Call Saul, the final season. We had a lot of really good shows kind of in between there. We had Comic-Con with Andrew Lincoln coming back and announcing his spinoff series. House of the Dragon was absolutely awesome. And Season 11C of The Walking Dead is probably one of my favorite halves of television. So, honestly, I think this year was definitely a very big success. Now, in terms of the negatives this year, I would definitely say Fear the Walking Dead was a major dud. Tales of the Walking Dead was a major dud. I would say The Boys Diabolical was a really bad one. Dark Winds, I would say more so falls in the bad territory. And a few others in between that I would say definitely fall in the bad territory. And then there are a few in the middle that I thought was pretty good. So, 2022 overall, very mixed bag for entertainment, but I will say there are more things I enjoyed than things I didn't enjoy. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below. How did you feel about all this entertainment? What did you watch out of this video? What shows have you seen and what shows have you not seen? Let me know, and that is it for this video. So of course, if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the subscribe button so of course you don't miss any other videos, because we are about to review a hell of a lot of TV shows and a hell of a lot of entertainment for Dan's Reviews in 2023. So if you're interested in joining me for the ride on all these new TV shows and all this content for next year, make sure to click the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos on that. And of course, I'll see you guys really soon for more videos in 2023 and more reviews to come. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys really soon for more videos. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and peace out.
I've heard stories, walkers that can climb walls and open doors. I was never sure if they were just stories